Hi, I'm Megan.
Hi, Megan. How are you?
How are you?
Good. Which one of our offices are you from?
I'm from the Arvada office.
Oh,
I just joined like last week. So
awesome. Well, welcome aboard. I'm also in Arvada. So,
yeah, I usually meet with Bria and
yep.
yep. So I just figured I'd join today. I have to leave at I can't stay the whole time, but I just wanted to join for a little bit today.
Oh, I'm glad you did. Glad you did. I'm just getting set up. I literally just walked in the door. I have already been out and about, had to take my dog to get groomed. So, hello, Deanna. And you're on mute.
Sorry. Hello, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. Here we go. Is that Aquila? How do you pronounce that?
Yes, it's Aquila. That's right.
Aquila, welcome, welcome. Which one of our market centers are you from?
Castle Rock.
Castle Rock. We've got everybody here. We got a little Arvada, we got a little Foothills, we got a little Castle Rock. I love it. There's Casey.
That's great.
You ready to find a buyer today, Casey?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Me too. Me too.
I've got that listing appointment today too. That's
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna
mean,
send you all kinds of good juju today.
yeah, it's gonna be a busy weekend. Whew.
Yeah, that's how mine was last weekend.
No riding my bike.
It's too windy.
Oh, is it?
Oh, it's horrible out here. I gotta find the sandbags for my open house signs. Or they're not gonna survive. They'll end up in Aurora.
Uh-oh, I better probably think about that since, well, I'm in a neighborhood in Brighton, but I don't know. Let's see.
Well, I think you're fine if you have the ones that poke in the ground. Just make sure you get them down deep enough. But I've got several of those sidewalk signs.
That's all I have. And then Nikki's got the ones in the ground, but I brought a bunch of stakes with me for those because I
Yeah.
thought the ground was going to be frozen. So
Yeah, so if anybody's working open houses this weekend, make sure you're securing your signs, especially down here. I don't know what it's like up in the foothills, but out here in Northwest Arvada, the wind it woke me up. It was that intense last night. So anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Margaret Gade. I am one of the productivity coaches in Arvada, Colorado. And I work with Bria there. And then I also work, of course, with Jody in the foothills and Kelly down in Castle Rock. There are so many new faces here that I bet you guys don't even know each other. So what I would love to do, because knowing each other, right? If I live in Castle Rock, I may not want to drive all the way up into the mountains to help somebody buy a property or vice versa. So knowing where each other is from, you could potentially help each other out with some referrals and stuff. So I'm going to start. I got the Brady Bunch here. I'm going to start up with Megan and introduce yourself and which office that you're from.
Hi, I'm Megan. I just joined the Arvada office last week, but I do live in Parker. So yeah, so I'm kind of gonna reach out everywhere. So yeah.
So Megan will cover anything from Parker to Arvada. She's got that corridor
Yeah.
down. All right,
Yeah.
Deanna.
I am with the Foothills office in Conifer, but I live in Woodland Park, so I'm like my predecessor. I go north and south.
always drive. I love it. When you find the right office, you know. All right, Casey. You're on mute.
I just put food in my mouth. I'm Casey Fogelman. I am with the Arvada office. What am I, 3 years now? 4 years, 3 years? Doesn't matter.
3. Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. And where do you live?
Oh, I live in Central Park.
Yeah,
out in
so
Stapleton.
we drive to our offices. All right, John, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey there, my name is John, obviously. I live in Castle Rock and I joined the Keller Williams in Castle Rock in last September. So
Perfect, love it. All right, Robert, up to you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I'm a new agent. I'm at the Keller Williams in Castle Rock. Yeah, there's I guess not a whole lot to be said yet.
You're here. You're in Castle Rock. It's all good, right? Mark, where are you at? Which office are you aligned with? And then where do you live? Because this is a good one.
Howdy, y'all. I started at the Keller Williams Arvada office avenues this last fall. And then I just recently transferred up to top of the Rockies. So I service Summit, Park, and Lake counties up in the mountains.
So if you have clients who want to buy in Breckenridge, Vale, Keystone, Mark is your man. And the reason you want to know that is that those particular MLSs don't like the rest of us up there. They make it very cost prohibitive for us to get in there, and they just don't want us. So having Mark up there as part of our family is really awesome. So love that. All right, Amir.
Hi, yeah, my name is Amir. I joined a few months ago. So I live in Arvada. I'm part of the Arvada office avenue. Would love to cover anything on the west side, Boulder, all the way down to like Lakewood, Littleton. So
Perfect. Love it. And then I hope I say it right. Akila.
Hi, yes, you said it right. I'm Akila. I'm from the Castle Rock office and I live in Castle Rock. I'm pretty new. A couple of months I just joined.
Awesome. And then just joining us, Nikki Garcia, which office, and just a little bit about yourself. We're kind of talking about where we live.
Good morning, everybody. I am out of the Arvada office. I've been licensed for, what is it, going on 3 years now?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, 3 years. Whew. I don't know what else to say. I like to read.
Perfect. Awesome. You like to read? I love it. All right. We got
She's who I go
readers,
to.
skiers.
I go to her for all my social media stuff because she's got it all.
She's good at it. All right. So I love this today. So what we're going to talk about today is, well, 2 things, but I heard a lot of, I'm new. I heard a lot of, I don't have a lot of experience. So if I were to tell you, congratulations, you just got a buyer under contract, how many of you know exactly what to do? Some of you, because you've done it before. Okay, what if I told you, congratulations, that new listing that you put on the market and you followed all of the things that Jody told you to do last week and you got it under contract. Do you know what to do now? Okay, I just saw Nikki's eyes go like this, right? That's scary, right? We teach you guys all the time about how to find business, how to find business, how to find business. We help you write the contract so you get your client under contract. You're not done. As a matter of fact, you've just approached the hardest part of the business, is keeping a transaction together. Right now, we've got a couple people here who have done a little bit of that on both sides of the fence, both the buy and the sell. But I realized it's kind of like, oh my goodness, I'm under contract. Now what the heck do I do? Right? So my team's built spreadsheets. We've built checklists. Okay. And for those of you that have taken Ignite or you've listened to the Ignite series, it talks about building checklists. And it would be really easy for me to hand you our checklists. Super easy. Here are the checklists that Margaret Gainholz uses. How many of you want that? You really don't. Because we have other things built into it, right? Yes, and I'll show you what we use. I'm happy to show, I'm happy to do that. But here's the deal. You need to buy your own, make your own. And so I'm going to help you do that today. I hope you all have paper and some pencils written down beside you, or, you know, if you're like some of the agents I coach, they type everything I say. I feel like I just need to put a microphone on their computer and it'll just auto transcribe it for them. But I'm going to help you start creating your own, because you can have different kinds of checklists. You can have a checklist that all it does is keep you out of trouble. It makes sure that you follow the guidelines within the contract, right? And at the end of the day, those are the most important components. What you would see, or you will see when I pull up one of our checklists, is that we've layered in a whole lot more than that. We've layered in gifts. We've layered in email communication. We've layered in text communication, because there's so much more in the service side. Does that make sense? You all are going to want to do that differently. I will tell you, when I was a brand new agent 9 years ago, I can't believe that already, right? 9 years ago, I didn't have the business I have today to be able to bankroll some of the things that are now in my checklists. So the reason I don't like to give them to you is because I don't want you to feel like, oh my goodness, I need to send a $75 edible arrangement to the person and I only have $50 in my bank account. I'm not setting you up for success when I do that. Does that make sense? So I want you guys to determine your own wine and design. And did Casey literally just bring a whiteboard in? Oh, was that there before?
That
I
was
just saw all of
over
a
there.
sudden this whiteboard behind her and I thought, oh my goodness, she's like ready to roll making her stuff. So
Not that
anyway,
good.
let me find really quick and then I'll share my screen. While I'm finding one more thing, tell me, you guys, anybody got any really good news or exciting things happening you want to share? I always like to celebrate wins. No?
Just my listing appointment today, which I haven't had a listing appointment since last year.
Love it. Love it. Hopefully you went to rewatch the skills lab.
Yeah, this is with 72 sold, so I have to practice some of that and bring some of my other stuff into it. So
Gotcha.
it's going to be a combo of both.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else got anything exciting? I mean, exciting things can be, I went door knocking and nobody like yelled at me. Right? It can be, I made that first phone call. I held my first open house and I got a follow-up lead, right? All of those things are worth celebrating. So as you're moving through your business, right, make sure that we're helping you celebrate those. So, all right, I'm going to quickly share my screen. I think I've got it all set up now so that it's not a total disaster. Here we go. So this is, I said we would tell you, just kind of show you what I do. So what my team does, if we have a buyer who we just got under contract, right? We send an email that's a congratulations. We create a contract timeline. We send docs to the lenders. We schedule things. There's just a lot of things in here. I mean, this is all the steps that we take with a buyer. And honestly, we have a transaction coordinator who does a lot of some of the other stuff that's probably not even on this checklist. Okay. So where do you start? What's the guiding principle that you use as you're building your checklist? And I'm going to tell you, it's one document. Has anyone seen this? Can anyone tell me what this is?
That appears to be an offer to buy contract at the very one of the bottom sections where
That's the
you
most
get all-
stressful part of the contract.
Yep. Is the contract to buy and sell. Oops, that was weird. This is coming out of the contract to buy and sell that you guys are, oops, not that part, that you're all going to use, right? That's your offer. And in your offer, you've got your dates and deadlines. Now, having watched my business partner, Stacy, recently purchase property out of state, not all states consider dates and deadlines true deadlines. They're kind of like speed limits and they're just suggestions. In Colorado, a deadline is a deadline. And if you miss it, you're going to impact your client. So what I'm going to do today to help you get started on your checklists of how to manage a client after the fact is we're going to go through these dates and deadlines. We're going to talk about whose responsibilities they are. So if I was going to create a blank checklist today, I would literally start with the dates and deadlines, and then how is that impacted on the buy side and the sell side? Okay, does that sound good? Okay. And by the way, this is not going to become a contracts class, so I'm not going to teach strategy on contracts, all right? Okay, so alternative earnest money deadline. That's the deadline that the buyer has to turn in the earnest money to whoever is holding the earnest money. Typically, that's a title company, although some brokerages, especially if you deal with a RE/MAX, they will hold it at the brokerage. Okay, so alternative earnest money being turned in, which side has to complete that action? Is it the buyer or the seller?
Buyer.
The buyer, right? So if I am creating a buyer checklist, one of the things I'm going to put in my checklist is, did the buyer turn in the earnest money? Right? And I would probably might even put the deadline on of when it needs to be done by. Now, if I'm making a seller checklist, it might say follow up earnest money turned in the day after the deadline, because I would want to know that, right? Record title deadline. Record title deadline is the date in which the title company hired by the seller needs to provide the title commitment to the buyer. That's the deadline. So if I am writing a seller checklist, the day after I go under contract, or the day of, if it happens to happen in the middle of the day or morning, is I'm going to send my title order to my title company. So my checklist around title, if I'm on the seller side, is create title order, which means you're going to go through whatever process your title company requires, right? Or if you have a TC, you're still going to put it on your checklist, but you might assign that job to your transaction coordinator. So on the seller side, my twofold, I have a send the order to the title company, and then the record title deadline, I'm going to verify on the seller side, because, oh my goodness, if the seller doesn't send it, we got a problem. Title company doesn't get it out on time. I'm going to do a follow-up the day of the deadline to verify it's gone out. If I'm on the buy side, my checklist is going to ask, was the title commitment received? Now, the other thing you might layer into not required to, but one of the things you might layer into your checklist on the buyer side is most of the title companies, if you provide your buyer's email address, they will send all this stuff directly to your buyer. By the way, that's what you want to have happen. You don't ever want to be the transfer, because if you transfer late, you just caused a problem. But one of the things you might put in your buyer checklist is email to buyer regarding title commitment received. Now, all of us are Damian Cox Market Centers. Damian Cox is our attorney. Mark, is he your attorney up in Summit too?
Yes, he is.
Awesome. Okay. That makes it easier for me to coach you. So anyway.
I mean, I didn't even skip a beat. It's
love it.
Seamless.
Yeah. He actually has written in the clauses an email communication that you could use to send to your buyer about, you've received the title commitment from the title company. In the event you have any questions, blah, 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 right? Use Damian's words, or, use them at least as a guide. All right. The other thing is, on the buyer side, I might create something in my checklist to just verify with my buyer they don't have any concerns. Now, this is a little different than an inspection objection. I push a lot harder on inspection objections, but you still want to be managing those deadlines within the contract. Okay, so have I confused anybody yet? Okay, is this giving you what you thought you were gonna get from this class today? Yes? Some of
Yes.
you are like going, I didn't know, Margaret. I didn't know what I was gonna get, right? Okay. HOA documents. The HOA documents deadline is the date in which the seller needs to provide to the buyer any HOA docs. So if you have a property that has a homeowners association, if you're on the seller side, this is your deadline to meet. So if I'm creating my seller checklist on, hopefully, like when Casey's out at her listing consultation today and they agree to hire her, and if they're in an HOA, she's going to already have a conversation with them about how they want to provide HOA docs. There are multiple ways you can do that. One of them is I use Land Title, and I'm pretty sure other title companies probably do this as well, but they have a service that your seller can pay for. It's pretty inexpensive, that they will reach out to the HOAs and get all the documents that are listed into the contract and send them to the buyer. That's one way the seller can do that. The other way is the seller can go pull them all, download them all, email them to you as the listing agent, then you, the listing agent, email them to the buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent then emails them to the buyer. Any questions why I like the title company to do it for me?
Well, they might not have all the documents.
Well, did you just hear how many people have to touch it?
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of risk in that, right? So if I'm on the seller side, maybe the day after I go under contract, when I'm creating that title company order, I will also order the HOA docs through the title company if my seller has agreed to do that. Then I might have a second checklist item, HOA docs sent to buyer. Now that would work either way, right? Whether the seller is going to create them or they're going to have the title company do it. If you don't have an HOA, those deadlines just go NA, check them off, and you're out. If I'm on the buy side, my deadline, my checklist is going to say HOA docs received, question mark. And you can literally in your checklist do them the way you want to, but I would put the deadline in a column, the date of the deadline, and then I would have a second column, the date it was actually completed. Right? An easy way to follow it. Now, any of you that use transaction coordinators, and I think I see at least 2 of you that do that, they have software that they actually will use to help you with that. So sometimes you don't have to have as intensive a checklist. Okay. Seller's property disclosure. Whose deadline is that to deliver it?
Seller.
Seller. So if I'm a seller checklist, I'm going to make a checklist item that says disclosures to buyer. And then if I'm on the buy side, what's my checklist going to be?
Received.
Disclosures received, question mark. And you can lump those separately or individually between the property disclosure. You're also going to get other disclosures. You might get a source of water, a square footage disclosure. You could put lead-based paint in the same one, or you could make it separate. I don't care how you do your checklist. Just make sure you have something in there for it.
Yep.
Okay. Loan application deadline. Whose deadline is that?
Buyer.
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 So the day you go under contract, buyer's agent, send the contract and the counter offer to the lender, day 1. That's all you got to do to complete the loan application deadline. So if I'm making my buyer checklist, contract and counter to lender, that's all it says. On the seller side, I don't really care about that deadline. I really don't pay much attention to it. Loan termination. Okay, so this is an old contract. The loan terms deadline, again, that's a buyer deadline. As the buyer's agent, I might put in a follow-up on my checklist to check in with my buyer that their loan terms are all locked down. On the seller side, I don't really care. I'm not going to call you up and say, are your loan terms good or are you going to terminate today? Like, I don't care. Okay. The next deadline on the new contract is the loan availability. This is the one both sides care. So if I'm on the buyer's side, I'm going to put in there clear to close received, and I'm going to use my loan availability deadline. On the seller side, I'm also going to put clear to close received question mark. I want to know where we're at now. Now, hopefully the buyers are working with a lender who is sending me updates. As a listing agent, it is so awesome when you get updates from the buyer's lender. Just, you know where it's going, you know what's happening. Okay. Questions? Okay. Don't be afraid to ask, you guys, because this isn't always easy. Okay. Appraisal deadline. This is a buyer's side. However, I'm going to put it on both sides. So if I'm a buyer's agent, I might check, has appraisal been ordered, question mark. And if I haven't heard about one, I'm going to follow up with the lender probably 2 days before the deadline. Because if the lender hasn't ordered the appraisal, I might have a problem, right? So I'm going to check in with the lender. Same thing on the buy-seller side. If I'm the listing agent and I have not gotten a phone call from an appraiser wanting to come out and appraise my listing, I might want to notify the buyer's agent. Now, what I might find out is, oh, we didn't have to get one because the lender waived the appraisal. Great. That's all I wanted to know. However, sometimes the only way the buyer's agents know, because believe it or not, when you're the listing agent, not all buyer's agents are as good as you guys. They're not trained like you guys are. So they don't know to be following up with the lender. So sometimes as the listing agent, I need to help the buyer's agent. So if it's 2 days before the deadline and I haven't heard anything, and Nikki's the buyer's agent, because I pick on Nikki all the time, I am going to call up Nikki and go, hey, it's Margaret. I haven't gotten a phone call from an appraiser to schedule the appraisal, and I know our deadline's looming. She's either going to tell me something like it's been waived, or she's going to say a 4-letter word and go call and yell at her lender. Okay. Appraisal objection. I would only put this on my checklist on the buyer side. Mark, did you have a question, or were you just resting your hand?
Just resting my hand, sorry.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. ILC. This, I would put this only on a buyer side checklist. If your client wants to order an ILC or a survey. Now, those of you in Castle Rock and up in the foothills, you are probably going to see these more than those of us that are down in the city. For whatever reason, buyers in the metro area just don't think an ILC is important. They don't want to spend the $500. However, I would still put it on my checklist as a buyer's agent to have the conversation with my buyer about, have you ordered it? Are you gonna, do you want one? Do you want me to order it? Right? Because it is their right. And I am going to go into a mini contracts class right here. Why are ILCs important?
It basically buttresses the legal description that you see in the MLS of the property. It gives you, if somebody goes out, it's kind of a pre-survey. They go out and they actually make sure where the property is they use GPS, a GPS device linked to a computer, and it pulls up and they stake it usually.
Right. So
the thing I know
an
is like
ILC
order it the same day you have the buyer make an offer, because getting it scheduled within that 30, if you want to have a closing in 30 days, you want to order it sooner rather than later.
Yep, absolutely. Who is iPhone? Who is the person whose name is iPhone? Because I need to have it for attendance. It's not Casey. Okay, I'll figure it out.
It's Maria Correa, sorry.
Okay, thanks, Maria. Welcome. So an ILC is an improvement location certificate. Okay. And what it does is it shows where the improvements on the property have been done in relationship to the property lines. They're in the city, they're around $500-ish. I don't know what they are up in the mountains. I think it depends on the size of the property.
Yep.
But here's the deal. How do you know that the builder built the house in the right place on the lot? How do you know the fence is in the right place? So I had one where the title company required us to do an ILC, and it was because that particular property, that it was an alley access instead of a street access. And the neighbor next door had put in a cement driveway and they flared it at the alley. Do you know what I mean by that? They kind of went, shoo. All right. Well, when the title company did their search using the technology Mark was just talking about, the title company was concerned that that driveway came over into the property that we were buying. So we had to get an ILC, and we learned that where they flared the driveway, it came across the border, across the property line by an inch, just at the flare. So the title company did an exception in our title policy that they would not insure that 2 square inch area where it flared over, because we knew that we had been encroached on. Okay. But here's the story I want to share. And if you guys are around Damien long enough, you will hear him tell the story. He tells it funnier than I do. There's this community, it's called Highlands Ranch. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of it, but it's in the South Denver area. And when it was built, it was kind of an upper end community. Very well planned out, master community plans, all of those things. And there was a block that had a series of houses on it, right? There's probably 4 on the block and then 4 behind. Well, one day the guy is one of the houses in the middle was selling. And the buyer of that property decided to get an ILC. And what the ILC showed was that every house on the block was not put on their lot. So the lot lines might have been like this, and the houses were like this. So if the lot line was here, the house was built half on lot 1 and half on lot 2. The whole block was wrong all the way around. Problem? Major, right? Some attorneys made a whole lot of money unraveling that mess. Okay, but had somebody never done the ILC, no, they would have never fixed it. Does that make sense? They would have never known they had a problem. Right? So the buyer was very smart, because now he knew he didn't buy the house until it got solved. So it didn't become his problem because he didn't spend the $500 on an ILC. Okay, so just a little tidbit. All right, how are you feeling? You guys feeling good? Good to see some faces. I like faces. I like seeing everybody. All right. Plus, that's how I get my energy from you guys, not from coffee. All right. Inspection objection. Who's the primary on that deadline?
The buyer.
The buyer. So I'm probably early in my checklist going to say assist buyer in scheduling inspection. I might do that on day 1 or day 2. Then I would put another deadline, inspection objection deadline. Because as the buyer's agent, I need to help my buyer order the inspection, right? At least remind them to do it. Okay. So this is a big one. If I'm on the seller side, I'm probably going to put a follow-up that just says inspection objection ? Now, on the listing side, there's different strategies. And what I would tell you is I can argue pros and cons to both of them. If I'm on the listing agent side and the buyer's agent doesn't turn the inspection objection or termination in on time, does that benefit my seller? You could argue yes, because the buyer missed a deadline. So some listing agents will say, well, if I don't get it, I don't care, doesn't hurt me. Other agents will say, if I haven't gotten the inspection objection and it's the middle of the day of the deadline, I'm just going to call and check in with the buyer's agent. Because at the end of the day, as the listing agent, do I really want the objection or termination? No. But if the buyer's agent and the buyer missed the deadline and they needed to get something fixed, do you think it's going to cause a problem downstream? Say yes. So I would rather be the listing agent who follows up to make sure it's coming and then alert the buyer's agent that they are missing something versus having a problem downstream. You guys can do whatever you want. I'm telling you the pros and cons. Buyer's agents, if you are in a situation where your buyer does an inspection and they're not going to file an objection, send a courtesy email to the listing agent. I got to write one of those yesterday. Dear listing agent, I just wanted to let you know we've completed our inspections and no inspection objection or termination will be forwarded. Moving on. Needless to say, that listing agent was thrilled. Okay. Property insurance termination deadline. This is a buyer one. 100% a buyer one. As the listing agent, I'm not even putting it on my checklist. Property insurance, right? Maybe I check in early at the very beginning with the buyer. Do they need a referral for an insurance agent or a couple of insurance agents to check into homeowners insurance? Then as that deadline comes closer, I'm going to follow up with them. Did you get your property insurance put together? Now, if there's a loan, the lender is going to be helping you with that. But when you're working with a cash buyer, there's nobody verifying they have property insurance. And the last thing you want to do as a buyer's agent is have someone pay cash in these prices for a house, not get property insurance, and it goes up in smoke the day after closing. Can you imagine that? Whew. Okay. Due diligence documents. Who's responsible for that deadline?
I think the buyer.
Nope,
Or
it's the seller.
Sorry, seller.
All right. The seller's giving the due diligence documents to the buyer. So as the listing agent, I might very early in the stages, reminder to seller to pull together whatever due diligence documents the buyer requested in the contract. I would put that early in a communication. Dear Mr. Seller, you'll remember in the contract, the buyer requested the following documents. The best way to deliver them is to have them on the counter in a folder for when the buyer comes to do the inspection. They can just look at them while they're there and they leave them there. The other option is that the seller can scan them all, email them to you, you email them to the buyer's agent, the buyer's agent emails them to the buyer. Okay, so again, communication with your sellers, both up front and then as the deadline appears. Okay. Conditional sale, that's a buyer's agent. Hopefully you're the listing agent on the sale side as well. And then your closing and possession dates. So if I was going to build a checklist, that's how I would do it. If I'm the buyer's agent, the other things I would put into that checklist is, well, for both of them, here's a best practice. Once you're through inspection, I would schedule the closing, both on the seller side and the buyer side. Okay, because especially if you have closings towards the ends of the month, since COVID, we've gotten into this thing where buyers and sellers don't even show up at the closing table together. So now the title companies are having to book out double closings for one property. Does that make sense? So they're doing double the number of appointments, which means their calendar gets full very fast. So it's always easier with so many things in life. If you're already on somebody's calendar, it gets very easy to move. It's when you're not there, they can't find a spot for you. So I like to get my closings scheduled after I'm through inspection. And then if we end up having to move them because something happens, then you tweak them. Make sense? So make sure you have that on both of your checklists, right? Buy side, sell side. Buyer's agents, schedule your pre-close walkthrough. Okay. Nikki just got the funniest grin on her face. I don't know why. I have a feeling as her coach, maybe she forgot to do that once and she's not telling me. But schedule it, right? And if it's on your checklist, right, you do it early, right? Once you've got clear to close, schedule the pre-close walkthrough. Because if you follow the way that I teach you how to write contracts, you got your clear to close a week before closing. So now you got time. Okay. Pre-close walkthrough, when do you do them? Come on, I dare somebody to say before closing. Come on, have some fun with me
The
today.
night before, the day before, a few hours before.
Yeah, I like to do mine the day before. So if you were to look at my schedule, I like to do my closings in the mornings, well, usually, and I like to do my pre-close walkthrough the day before. Now, there are agents out there that'll do it on the way to the closing table. But let me tell you some stories. And these, I tell stories because they help you remember and they help make sense. And Casey and Nikki, I'm sorry, you probably have heard both of these stories before. Okay. You want to have your pre-close walkthrough done early enough that if something happens, you've got time to fix it. Now, the funny part to this is both of these stories are coming from the same agent and it's not me. Day before closing, walking through the property, and in the contract, it states that the seller is taking the refrigerator. Buyer's agent and buyer show up at the house and they walk into the kitchen and there's this great big hole in the wall between the garage and the kitchen. So it's just open, great big hole. And it's the place where the refrigerator used to be. Anybody see a problem?
Yeah.
Gas, fumes, things with more legs than humans, right? All kinds of bad things between garages and houses, fire hazard. So the agent calls the listing agent and she says, hey, we're at the pre-close we're at the walkthrough and we have a little bit of a problem. In that spot where the refrigerator was, and immediately the listing agent goes, well, the refrigerator was excluded. And she goes, oh, yeah, I know, I agree. There's a hole in the wall. As a matter of fact, there is a hole between the kitchen and the garage. The listing agent says, well, once you put the refrigerator there, that will be fine. Anybody see a problem? Gas, fire, rodents, bugs, things. Ugh. Okay. Well, immediately they got it fixed. Well, what happened was the seller made custom canoes. And they had this beautiful custom wood canoe in the basement. And when they were moving, they were bringing the canoe up. And because of the size of the canoe and the way the stairs were, they could not turn the canoe to get it out of the basement. So their only solution was to cut a hole in the wall between the kitchen and the garage and take the canoe straight out. But didn't think it was important enough to put the wall back. Okay. Now, if you found this on the way to the closing, do you think you'd have time to get the wall rebuilt in 20 minutes? No. Does your buyer want to buy that house? No. They got it fixed. It all went to closing. And by the way, they got it done on time because the buyer's agent had gotten it done soon enough. Okay. Same buyer's agent, fast forward several years. I'm actually with the client this time because that buyer's agent had some things going on and needed some coverage. So I was going to go to the walkthrough and the closing with her buyer. And we get to, I'm almost to the house and the buyer's agent calls me and says, hey, I just got a phone call from the listing agent. The sellers are saying that they just found a leak, a small leak behind the washer. They're in the process to get it fixed. Just make sure you check it out before you go to the closing table. I'm like, okay. So we get there and the sellers are like in a complete panic and they come running out of the house and they're like, oh, we're going to get this fixed. We're going to get this fixed. We're so sorry. We didn't know, blah, 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 blah. So we went in And I walked into the laundry room and I put they told me where it was, and you could see water had been like going down the wall. And this wasn't a recent drip. You could tell. So I went and I put my foot where the washer and dryer had set, and the floor did this. Anybody see a problem with that?
Mhm.
That's not a small recent drip, is it?
Mhm.
It's been there for a while. So we looked at the rest of the house. Everything else was fine. Went out, talked to the buyers away from the house because the seller was there. Okay, by the way, closing's supposed to start in 15 minutes. Any of you want to tell your buyers to close on that house knowing what I just told you?
Mhm.
No, we could have had mold. We didn't know what the structural damage was. We didn't know anything. So I pulled the buyers aside by our car so the seller couldn't hear us. And I said, you guys have a choice to make. But if it were me, I wouldn't close. Because you don't know that they're going to fix it. You don't know how they're going to fix it. You don't know anything. So I called the buyer's agent. She agreed with me. And basically the buyers didn't show up for closing. Sure enough, they had major damage in all of the flooring going all the way down into the crawl space. They found mold down in the crawl space. The back of the wall where the washer and dryer had sat in front of needed to be completely replaced. It needed to be treated for mold. It was a nightmare. They did close a week later. That's why I do my walkthroughs the day before, so I have more time. Okay. Don't ever let your buyer skip a walkthrough. Okay. Questions on that? What do you do if you have a post-closing occupancy agreement? Anybody want to tell me?
You do the
Mark,
walkthrough
Nikki, Casey?
after, you do the walkthrough after the tenant is moved out.
Yes, you do, but what do you do before closing?
A post-close walkthrough,
Pre-close walkthrough.
pre-close. Dang it.
You still want to do a walkthrough before you go to closing. So if you have a post-closing occupancy agreement, it is completely acceptable to do a pre-close walkthrough, even though the seller's stuff is all there. They may have not even started packing if they've got a 60-day post-close, but you still want to make sure the house is in the same condition before you own it, right? And how do you know? Typically a post-closing occupancy agreement, if you did them right, has a security deposit in it. So if you didn't do the pre-close walkthrough, how do you know when you find a damage after the seller moves out with the post-close? How do you know if the damage was before or after closing? Now you're going to get in a fight over the security deposit. So I strongly encourage a pre-close walkthrough, even when you have a post-closing occupancy agreement. And then your buyer does another one immediately after they leave the property so that you can solve any issues that are there. I have been very blessed that I have never incurred any of those. And I want to believe part of it is I do my due homework. Okay. Woo. You guys feeling good? You got some checklists started?
Mhm.
Yeah. What questions do you have? This is flying this morning. No questions?
Mhm.
How many of you learned something today you didn't know before? Boy, if not everybody's hand doesn't go up, I'm going to be sad and I'm going to go cry in my bedroom. All right, good. That's what I like to hear, right? We learned something, right? We learned a tool. Okay. I'm done with checklists. They bore me anyway. Okay. For those of you that know me and coach with me, you know that paperwork and details are probably not my strong suit, which is why I have a team that does that very well. Appraisal packages. I promised the appraisal package. When you're the listing agent, one of the things is you're going to get a phone call. And it's going to usually be the appraiser, and he's going to say, hey, I need to schedule a time to come appraise 123 Beach Street. And you're going to schedule that time. And assuming, as long as your listing contract says that an appraiser can go in and you don't have to be there, you could give them the lockbox code. And you could let them go in and they can go do their thing. You arrange it with your seller, of course, so that they know to not be there. And the appraiser shows up, and then you'll get a piece of paper that tells the buyer, lender, will get a piece of paper telling you, here's what the house is worth. You can absolutely do that, listing agents. You can just give them the lockbox and let them go do their thing. However, I think that's a risk. And as a matter of fact, the only time in my entire career when I didn't do an appraisal package is when the buyer's agent called me and said it didn't appraise. So then we had to go through the dispute process, and I didn't really like that because it was a whole lot of work I didn't need to go through, and there's no guarantee they'll ever change the value, right, Nikki? So as a listing agent, even if I have a huge appraisal gap, I believe it's my job as the listing agent to make sure that that house appraises or has the best shot of that appraisal being right for both the seller and the buyer. And even if I have a full 100% appraisal gap coverage, I want to help the buyer out because I'm a professional. So I create what's called an appraisal package. And I learned this from a very successful agent in Arvada who works with a lot of investors. And when you're dealing with flips, you really got to do this right to help get the values, because sometimes you go into some parts of the communities, all of the comps aren't flipped. And now you're going to ask for 100,000 or 200,000 more than any other thing. Your comps are not going to be there. Casey, think about Windsor Gardens, right? How many of those properties are not remodeled, and how hard it is to comp some of those out. Now, Casey's investors are changing that out there, but it's going to take some time. So what do I put in my appraisal package? I start with, I always want to meet the appraiser. So when the appraiser calls me, says, I want to schedule an appointment to go on 123 Beach Street, and I want to do it Saturday at 10 o'clock, I'll say, great, I'll meet you there. I never offer the lockbox code because then he can't show up early, which they do sometimes. I get to the house early. I get there 10, 15, 20 minutes before the scheduled 10 o'clock. And you know what I'm doing? I'm turning on the lights. I'm making sure that the house looks like it did the day it was photographed and the day it hit the market. Because appraisers are humans. If they walk into a house and there's dirty underwear on the bathroom floor, it's going to impact them, just like it would impact any of you, right? Please say yes. So I always tell my sellers, the house needs to stay in staged condition until the appraiser leaves the front door. If you're going to pack, make sure that the boxes go in the closets. Okay, I don't want boxes everywhere. Okay, so house looks great. They walk in, the lights are all on, just like it would be for a showing. Then I've created a package. I used to use I haven't branded to my team now, but I have a folder. How do I say it? I have a folder like we had in school with 2 pockets. That's it. The 2-pocket folder. Okay, sorry. And I use the black one that says Keller Williams on the front of it. Looks really nice, looks really elegant. When you get to that point, you can have some of those branded with your own brands and logos on it. Okay. Here's what I put on the left side. The left side are all things about the property. So I'm going to put in there a copy of the contract. All 26 pages printed, stapled together. I'm going to put in there a copy of the counteroffer if there is one. I'm going to put in there a copy of any amend extend that's been executed up until that date. So all things related to the contract are on the left side of the folder. The other thing that I put in there is if I have a brochure in the house, a marketing brochure, I put one of those in there. I also will on the left side print from the MLS the appraiser view of the listing. Now, are you guys all familiar enough with RE Colorado or with your MLS that when you you go to print, there's different views you can print. One of them is the appraiser view, and it's a single page. It's what they're used to seeing. So I will print the appraiser view of my listing and make sure you do it in color because you want the photograph to be pretty. If you're dealing with an investor property, your client, excuse me, bought the house at a lower price, they've put a ton of effort and money into it, I would make what's called a feature sheet. I also do this on high-end properties if they've got a lot of upper end things in them. Okay, or even if the homeowner recently did a bunch of upgrades, and I'll put in there new flooring, right? Upper end appliance, whatever it is, I will start calling out all the features that they put in. Right? Bamboo flooring versus engineered hardwood, all of those types of things. I'm going to call those things out. I'm going to put that in there. A list of everything that the flipper did. If he completely rewired the house because it had aluminum wiring before, tell him that. Tell the appraiser that. Okay? Questions? That's the left side. Oh, one more thing. If you got multiple offers on your listing, hopefully you're using some kind of method. I like most agents I know use Excel to be able to lay out the differences in the offers. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Or would you like to see one? You want to see one, Mark? Is that what that was? All right, let me see if I can find one. I'm wondering if I have a live one. Hold on a minute that I've used. Bear with me. No. Oh, I know that Rush has had one. Well, hold on a minute. Come on. There we go. So this is my offer summary sheet that I used on a property. So I've got all of the offers on this one. We had 5. I've hidden the agent name because I actually did give this to an appraiser. So this is the offer number as they came in. So I always put them in the order they came in, who's the agent, and then the different information about them, right? The purchase price, earnest money, down payment, all of those types of things. And then I have the notes out to the side about it, right? This works really good when you are in a multiple offer situation. Like, can you imagine printing out, what did I say? I had 5 offers, and you printed out all 5 offers and tried to have your seller identify the differences? Can anyone say nightmare? Right? So what I have found is that, these make it very easy to identify the best ones. And it becomes strictly about numbers, right? Nowhere in here do I say the person's name. Nowhere do I say anything about them. Family of 2, cute single young guy, right? Like, I don't have anything in there describing anything about them. So nobody knows. This is totally a business exercise. So it makes it very easy for the seller to go, okay, well, 465, they can see all of the values, they can see all of the different terms, and they can make an educated decision. Guess what? I print this summary out and I give it to the appraiser. This proved to be very helpful, and it does over and over again when we're in a market that is going up faster than the comps support it. We see this for the last 9 years. Thank you, Megan. For the last 9 years, every spring we have appraisal issues. And we end up with appraisal issues because appraisers look in the rearview mirror, right? So by giving them the comps and saying, look, I got 5 offers, 9 offers, 10 offers, 30 offers, all over the asking price, It shows what the market is willing to pay. And I will tell you, most appraisers will take that into consideration. I said most, Nikki. You had a jerk. Okay. So anyway, that's the left side of the appraisal package. The right side of the appraisal package, listing agents. Did you not pull comps when you helped your seller set that price? Hope so. Right? So I print out the appraiser view in color. And I might even, in some situations, include the pictures of that MLS property. But at a minimum, I've got the appraiser view of the MLS. And I print them all out and I put them in there. And if I know things about those properties, I will write that on the sheets. Things like it's pending. Hold on, Mark. I'll be right there. It's pending. But I called the listing agent. I called Casey, and Casey told me, yep, we're under contract. We're closing on March 27th, and our list price is this much money. I'm going to write that on the appraiser sheet. Spoke to listing agent, scheduled to close March 27th, purchase price this much money. It's helping him. Yes, Mark.
Are you saying that the appraiser view of the MLS goes on the right side or on the left side of the folder?
If it's the comps, it's the right side. If it's the
Okay.
property, it's the left side.
Okay, cool.
Good question. Okay. If I was in that property, so if I have a listing coming on the market and I know I'm going to have it on the market, as a matter of fact, I've got one of those right now. We're under contract to buy a house and I know I'm going to be selling her house in Wyndham Park in the near future. I now have a search in the MLS in which I am the customer. And every time a new listing comes on the market in Wyndham Park, I know about it, which now gives me the opportunity to go do a preview on it. Super important. This is helpful tricks, guys. Okay. I go do a preview on those properties, print the MLS, and I write down my notes about what I saw. Now, 2 months later, when that house is sold and closed, and I'm using that as a comp to my home, I can make notes. I viewed the property on this date. Here's what I saw. So let me tell you where that played a role big time. I had a listing in Alta Vista and a property across the street and down a few houses had sold. It came on the market when we were in this phase that I just described. So I went and looked at it. And in the pictures, it looked like they had completely gutted the kitchen, put in all new counters, had put in all new cabinets. The description said newly remodeled kitchen. Okay. Yeah, right. It was some of the best paint jobs I have ever seen on cabinets. It was the cabinets that were built in the house in 1959 when the house was built. But they painted them and they looked amazing in the pictures. In person, they looked okay, not as good as they did in the pictures. The countertop, did you guys know that there's this product that you can buy and you paint it over the Formica countertops and it makes it look like stone? Did you know that? Well, that's what they did. Because when I opened things up, I could see it. So when I was able to tell that to the appraiser, who would have had no way to know that, did that mean now that my fully remodeled kitchen actually did make my house more valuable? All day long, right? Because I knew the way it was described in the MLS wasn't completely accurate. Does that make sense? Did you see the value that that brings to the seller and the buyer when you do that? Good luck, Robert. Have a great open house. Okay. So those are the things that I do in my appraiser packages to help the appraisers appraise the house for the value of the contract. So I just did in an hour what I plan to do in 2. So questions on anything? Questions on what we covered first, whether it's the checklists, whether it's the appraisal packages.
Mm-mm.
I'm really not that good of an instructor. Come on.
We're that good as students.
You're that good at students. That's probably true. That's probably true. Some of you that have done some of these, did I miss anything? What do you guys do? Like, what kind of checklist do you use? What, you know, what do you use to help you stay on track of your contracts?
Use a transaction coordinator.
Okay.
I make a list. And it's not something that's in Excel or anything. I learn and I retain more information when I write things down. So I make sure everything's written down so that I follow it line by line. And also, word of advice, don't do what I did and assume with the pre-close walkthrough with a post-close occupancy. What Marg was referring to is we didn't schedule our pre-close walkthrough because we had a post-close because I assumed that I didn't need to do it. Don't do that. Don't be me. We got it in and everything was fine, but just don't do what I did.
Well, and that's true, right? 99% of the time, you're fine, right? I mean, 99%, but you just need to be that 1% where the canoe didn't turn. Right? Those are critical. Awesome. Are you guys familiar with a transaction coordinator and what they are?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So a transaction coordinator is basically leverage for you guys, right? And you guys are dual career. Like everybody here is a dual career agent at some level, right? So your time is so valuable, and a dual career is a transaction coordinator is a third party independent, not on your staff, that you can hire to help you do the paperwork. Okay. And I mean, I can tell you what they do. I've never not had one, so I don't even know what all they do because it just all magically happens, but they're very inexpensive. They're definitely, depending on if it's a buy or sell and the type of transaction coordinator you hire, they're anywhere from $300 to $500. And the things that they will do is they will help you manage the deadlines, those deliverables of sending things to the title company, sending over disclosures to the other side, putting the buyer's information on the disclosures, sending things to the lender, scheduling inspections, scheduling closing times and pre-close walkthroughs, and maybe even entering information in the MLS depending on your TC. They will do all of those things. Plus, they will help manage your compliance. They will upload all of the documents into Command. And then if there's a problem from compliance, they'll help track down and solve the problem for you. You don't even know that it's happening. Okay. So I come from a leadership in the corporate world. So I always had people who did those kinds of things for me. So for me, it was natural, right? But each of your offices has them, probably has one, if not two. If your office does not, they are not tied to a certain office, right? So I know that Mark and Nikki both use the same transaction coordinator and they're in two different offices. So if your office doesn't have one and you would like a referral or two, I have those. Okay. Anything else the two of you would want to say about that?
Don't skip out on a TC, like at all, especially us dual careers. I had my first two transactions at the exact same time working in 9 to 5. If I did not have a transaction coordinator, I would have cried more than I did, but I would have cried.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Okay. What else? What's on your minds? What do you want to know? Start firing away. Ask the coach anything.
Hi, so I would like to know if we have to disclose to the client that we have a transaction coordinator taking care of the documents.
Fabulous question, and the answer is yes. And
Okay.
you do that in your listing agreements, whether it's the exclusive right to buy or exclusive right to sell. Damien has actually written a clause where you disclose that they are Most of them are unlicensed, although some of them have licenses. So you do need to know if yours is licensed or unlicensed. But it states in there that you have one, they'll have access to the client's information, but it's your responsibility to pay them. So yes, great question.
Thanks.
And Mark, I don't know if you're talking to me or somebody else, but you're on mute. Okay, I don't think he's talking to me. Okay. What other questions? Well, how are things going in your careers? Like, what are you struggling with? How are you handling your day jobs in real estate?
I'm just
Deanna, you
working,
went off mute. Go ahead.
I'm just working on getting traction on the real estate side of the house. So I'm doing what I need to do to get contacts or to put my name out there, let people know who I am. But in a previous life, I ran a business and was a full-time teacher. So I've done this before, and it's just a lot of time management and being organized.
Love it. And just jumping in, right? How
Mhm.
many of you, if it was warmer today and not cold and windy and snowy and all the nasty that it is out there, if we went to the swimming pool, how many of you would just dive into the 9-foot end? Or how many of you would start where it's at your ankles and walk in slowly? Who are my dive in go people? 1, 2. Okay. All right. That's what I want you to do in your real estate business. Just dive in and just know who your help is when you find something that's happening, right? My favorite phone call is from a new agent who has barely had time to even come to their first coaching session, call me up and say, Margaret, I've got a buyer and we need to write an offer. Can you help me? And I go, yes, right? Because they just went for it, right? Others of us tend to be, I plan to until I have it perfect and then I'll go. And the problem is if you wait to get everything perfect before you go, what happens? You run out of money and you never go. You get frustrated. You're putting in time, you're taking CE classes and you never go. Right? So I love that, right? But taking some time, right? You guys are all here and I love that, right? We lost a few of us already, but you know, you guys are here learning and building systems. So today, hopefully what you took from this class, this session today, you will go and you'll find, and seriously, an hour to create your checklists, and then you'll evolve them over time, right? You'll figure out where's the right places to communicate with your clients. Where do I want to pop a little gift in the mail to them, right? So as an example, on our listings, it says 2 days after they go under contract, we deliver to their house 10 moving boxes and tape and a marker. Okay. Just little things, right? Not expensive. I mean, boxes at Home Depot are pretty cheap, right? But it's those little things, right? Or showing up the day before they need to be out on the sellers with those moving boxes because they didn't get enough, right? For my buyers, the day that they're moving. Just thought I'd stop by. Here's a coupon to Domino's. Although I've switched to DoorDash. We now give gift cards for DoorDash on moving day. And we'll have a little box of supplies, right? Paper plates, napkins, just little things, a roll of toilet paper, right? Just a little something on moving day so that when they're moving in, they can just order DoorDash or they can just order pizza or something like that, right? Have any of you guys moved recently? Yes. Think about that, Deanna, right? Think about it. You're moving, things are crazy. You don't know where anything is. And somebody walks up with a box that has some of those minor little supplies, right? Is that like not your new best friend?
Right?
Okay. But you build those things into your own plans, right? Ordering closing gifts. Where are those in your checklist? Are you doing closing gifts? Right? Build it into your checklists. Okay. All right. What else? John, you went off mute.
Yeah, I had a question. So my career, I work construction. So my hours, I have very long hours. This is my first Saturday off since January. So that's why I haven't been on these classes for a while. But I was just maybe hoping getting some suggestions from you or anybody else on here for connecting with and making clients. Just because I have one day a week usually just to make something happen. I typically am, I mean, my day starts at 4:30 and then it probably ends at like 7 when I get home. So my time's very limited. Obviously my time management is something I try to work on a lot, and trying to reach out to people and get that clientele and that base kind of started for myself is something that I've struggled with for, I don't know, since I've really started being an agent. So I don't know if you have a suggestion or if anybody else on here does, maybe.
Oh, you can be sure I got a whole bunch. Okay. So how many of you find yourself in the car driving from point A to point B? Okay. I would say use your car time. Okay. Now, not at 4:30 in the morning if you're driving from your house to the job site, right?
Yeah.
But if you are driving, between, 8 and 7 at night, right? 8 a.m. to 7 at night or 9, have a call list in your car, right? Those people that you want to touch base with, right? And then, with the hands freeze in our car, and if you've got your phone synced to everything, I mean, I can push the button on my steering wheel and say, call Scott McKissick, and his phone will ring. And I don't have to dial it, right? So use your car time. I think that's a very valuable place. And the reason I like it is twofold. One, it's efficient. And second of all, when somebody calls you from their car, can you tell?
Oh, yeah.
Always, right? So it also helps control the length of the conversation, because sometimes when we get people on the phone we haven't talked to in a long time, they won't shut up, right? They just keep going and going and going and going. And you're like, I need to make 3 more phone calls. I need you to stop. But it's no easy way to do it. But when you're in the car, it's super easy to say, hey, I'm almost to my destination. I am so glad we got this chance to catch up. Hey, do you want to get together for coffee soon? And even if your destination is only the next stop sign, you can end that conversation in a non-rude way. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I would always have, 10, 15 names in the car every week of people I want to touch base with. If they don't answer the phone, you just leave them a voicemail. Right? Hey, Amir, it's John. I just was calling. I hadn't talked to you for a little while. I was in the car and I thought I'd just call and check in. Hope you're doing well. Let's touch base soon. Bye. Right? Something super quick and easy like that.
Cool.
Now, how many of you have the command app on your phones? Okay. I would like for you guys to make sure that if you don't, you have it, because here's what's really cool about the command app. So I'm actually going to do this live, so this ought to be an adventure. So I'm opening my command app and I am going to make a phone call. So I'm going to go to my contacts and I know exactly who I'm going to call. So I found this person, and on here, their name comes up, and then there's a little phone, and then there's a little text and a little email. So I'm going to hit the phone, and my phone's going to come up and say, do you want to call this number? And I'm going to say yes.
Hello, this is Casey.
And Casey answered her phone, and we just had a great conversation, and I just hung up on her. Now, the minute I hang up with her, it comes up on my screen. You probably can't see it. It says add activity. It says, would you like to add this call to Casey Fogelman's timeline? I'm going to say yes.
Hi, Gretchen. My name is Mark Wilcox, and I'm a realtor with Keller Williams up in Summit County.
And I'm going to, it gives me choices of the interaction. I'm going to describe my interaction. It's just going to say, demo. So I know that that's what it was. I'm going to click save, and it's automatically going to log that conversation in Casey's contact card in my command. Whoa. Okay. So yes, these two are headed off to an open house. Don't ever hang up on you again. Okay, I won't, Casey. Anyway, super slick, right? Especially when you're in the car. Okay. The other thing is social media. John, are you on social?
Yeah, just Facebook. That's pretty much it.
Me
Nothing
too,
else.
right? I have an Instagram account, but if my marketing team on my business team didn't take care of that Instagram, it would be nothing is on it.
Right.
Right. The thing I love about social media, especially for you guys, is that you guys can't call people at 10, 11 o'clock at night, even though you might be awake being working, right? That you called me at 10 o'clock at night, we'd have a problem, right? But you can absolutely build social media, right? So what I would say is that using social media to make sure that people know you're around is awesome. And so like when you have that Sunday off, maybe you block an hour or 2 hours and like build a bunch of content and then just pop it out there randomly throughout the week.
Okay.
Right. So you could build out like 4 or 5, 6, a dozen videos about how to buy a home, right? Using the Your First Home book, and just, you know, deliver a couple of 2-minute videos and record a bunch of them, and then just have them on your phone. And okay, well, I'll pop this one on Monday, I'll pop this one on Thursday, right? And you've got like 2 or 3 weeks worth of content you've built.
Okay.
I think it's also key of just posting on social media about who you are. So with social media, there's a lot of different theories. There's a lot of different ways to think about it. But I think the number one key is, please do not be that agent who their entire personal Facebook page is, oh, look, we're under contract. Oh, look at my new listing. Oh, I've got an open house. Oh, look, just sold. And your entire feed is business. First of all, Facebook will bust you and shut you down for it if they catch it. But second of all, even if they don't, your people will snooze you, because they don't want to just see just listed, just sold, just listed, just sold. They don't care. They want to know you, right? It's social. Tony Giordano, which if you ever get a chance to sit in one of his classes or get a hold of one of his social media books, one of the things he talks about is that with social media engagement with people, you can get to know somebody new in days, which used to take weeks. And I kind of equate that to, I have a 25-year-old daughter, and last year she was on some dating app, and she met this guy. They're actually together today. They're probably getting married. Okay. She knew more about him on their first date than how many of you grew up in the era I did, where you met people in bars, right? It would take months to get to know them, right? And so the whole thing is that with social media, you can get to know somebody super quick, right? And if they send you a Facebook message, no one expects they'll have an immediate reply, right? It's typically you're going to have some ins and outs and backs and forths, right? So I would say use social media, because you can post at obscure times and people are still going to see your stuff.
Okay.
The other thing about social media is make sure they know about you. Rachel Adams-Lee, who is someone that I have a great amount of respect for, she's got an amazing business that she built from scratch. And she says in social media should tell about your 5 passions. Okay. So what are your passions? Well, first of all, I hope for all of you, one of them is real estate. Okay. So you're going to post some stuff about real estate, but what else is there about you, right? Maybe you have kids. Maybe you like to travel. Maybe you like to ski. Maybe you like to cook. I don't know what your 5 passions are, but your social media should tell that story. Now, some people say 3. I think 3 is too few. Okay. So for me, I'm at 4, which I'm pretty good with, right? I like my real estate. I like to travel. I love my family. I'm a bowler, right? I could probably pull something else in there if I wanted to. But those are the main things. If you go scroll my feed, go ahead, go look, right? That's pretty much what you're always going to see. Margaret's either traveling, Margaret's either talking about real estate or her family or something like that. Okay. And then I would try and post. They say you should post 10 times a week. I would say if you post 5, right? Just making sure some level of consistency. Don't be the agent who posts once in January and then shows up again in April, because people aren't going to get there. The other key to social media is you need to engage with your friends on social media. So one of the formulas is 10, 75, 7. 10 posts a week. Okay. We talked about that. 75 is you having some kind of engagement 75 times with your friends on Facebook. What does that mean? That means liking, commenting, direct messaging. So if somebody just and we're coming into Easter, oh, the Easter bunny pictures are going to be everywhere. Have some fun with them. Okay. Somebody posts a picture of their brand new baby. Make a comment. Oh, how precious, right? Whatever, right? Last night, some of my friends were lighting up the lanes. I took the night off bowling. I think I should have gone, but I started seeing pictures of scores popping up on their Facebook feeds. So what did I do? Wow, great series, right? Hey, did Rob finish the last 3 for the 300? Because they showed the score and he only had the first 9 frames. I never saw what he did in the 10th. Right? So you comment on stuff that's going on, right? Comment, like, maybe somebody posts something. I don't know. The other easy one is, you know how Facebook reminds you of when it's people's birthdays? Go to their wall and wish them happy birthday. Take a picture of you and that person, post it on their wall and say happy birthday. Please don't be like my cousin Matt. HBD. Hate that. That's all he writes. That's what if he's going to go on social media and it's your birthday, Matt's only you're going to get 3 letters, H, B, and D. I yell at him all the time. He's in sales. He knows better. But have some fun, right? If somebody posts something, and maybe it's only my friends that do this, right? But prayers needed, right? Or going through a tough time. Keep us in your thoughts. Have you guys ever had people write things like that? Don't be the person who goes onto their Facebook page and goes, what's going on? Because clearly they don't want to tell the world, or they would have told it right there, right? However, what I'd like to do with those types of scenarios is I will do a messenger so that it's only to them. And it'll say something like, hey, I saw your post. Not sure what's going on. Thinking about you. If you need an ear, I'm a phone call away. That's something that I would say, but I don't do it publicly on their wall. I do it in a private message. Those kinds of engagements. Here's the thing. If you start engaging on your friends' stuff, the algorithm says, oh, Margaret and Scott, like when Scott posts, Margaret comments. So those two like to engage with each other. So Margaret's posts need to go higher on Scott's news feed than Amir's, who they never talk to each other. So now when I post something, Scott's going to see it. And I want him to see it. This proved true. My daughter said this. So a little over a week ago, we had to put down our cat who we had for 17 years. Tough day, even for a farm kid. Okay. So I posted a little pictures of her, and just a little bit of a story as a tribute, right? We all do that. A lot of people do that with their pets, right? And I had over 200 people put some kind of, they didn't like it, but the care, they put the little emoji thing on it. And we had like 85 comments, right? All that did was it showed that all the work that I'm doing, my stuff is hitting the top of people's feeds, right? And now when they had that kind of engagement with me, it's just going to be that much more, right? When I travel, everybody that follows me, Mark might follow me a little bit, right? But when I travel, I do daily updates. And over Christmas time, we got caught in the Southwest disaster. You guys remember that? Well, we had to drive 1,200 miles to get my friend Tom back to Sumner, Iowa, so he could go to work the next day because our flights got canceled. So everyone was following this journey we ended up with 7 changed flights, 3 canceled, 1,200 miles in a car. Like it was crazy. And guess what? People loved following the crazy. Right? I don't know if that's helping, John, but that's how I would, if I was you, get connected with people because of the hours that you work. And then on Sundays, I would maximize your face-to-face, voice-to-voice time.
Yeah,
Right.
it's in the works, so.
Yeah.
We'll
Shoot
see.
people some text messages, go on coffees, brunches, happy hours, you know, you only
Yeah.
have one day a week.
Yeah.
And then you're going to want to start thinking about when I get somebody under contract working 7 days a week, 15 hours a day, or 6
Mhm.
days a week, that type of hours. How are you
Yeah.
going to support that client?
Right.
Right. And
Which
so
came into a conflict last December, in that scenario, doing a contract and stuff like that, but.
Yep. So TC definitely will help
Yep.
you. And then, just finding ways like during a lunch break or something to be able to make some of those phone calls and
Yeah.
maybe having a buddy to help show houses during the week. Right.
True.
Okay. Awesome.
Sure.
Well, that was a good conversation. I like talking social media. What else?
That's all I got.
All right. Okay. So some of you I know have open houses this weekend. 2 of them already ran off because they got to get to Brighton, so they had to drive. If you're working open houses, go into it with the mindset, I'm going to find a buyer for this house today. Right? Go into it with the mindset is that you're going to find an unrepresented buyer or seller who needs your help today. Don't talk about I need to have contacts or hope we have a lot of visitors, because that's what you'll get. Right now in open houses, we are seeing a higher amount of unrepresented buyers walking in and making offers on the houses they just walked into than we've ever seen before. Our team, the last 3 weekends, has found an unrepresented buyer who bought the property they walked into with an open house host. So they're out there. The thing is, you got to have the right level of conversations and the right level of follow-up. So one of the things that I found on social media, and I'm actually going to, if you guys will put your emails in the chat, I will actually send this to you guys. Let me find it. I found on Facebook and I altered it. Well, all I did was rebrand it. I basically stole it, but in real estate, R&D departments are high value. This is an open house follow-up plan that this team uses. Now, this doesn't take away from your command follow-ups, but what this brings is an actual way you make a connection with somebody who's unrepresented in an open house. The minute they leave the open house and you don't have anybody else there that you're talking to, you send them a text. And it says, "Hi, Scott. Thank you for stopping by my open house. I will check in with you tomorrow," or if it's Monday, say Monday. "In the meantime, if you need anything or want to see some homes, this is my direct line. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day." Okay. I used this last weekend and they responded immediately. By the way, we wrote an offer that night. Okay. Later, when you get home, if they don't respond to the text, you send this email. "Thank you for stopping by." Next day after the open house, 5 days after the open house, 8 days, 14, 21. This is a 21-day communication plan that's primarily text, email, and phone call to people that are walking through your open houses. I know this worked. Now, I also knew the woman that I wrote that contract for last weekend was also very ready to go. Like, I knew that. Like, I could tell. I would have followed up with her anyway. But this is actually telling you exactly what to type and write, and then you can alter it the way you want to. Now, I don't know about your smartphone, but mine's pretty smart. and I can put in text codes and it'll automatically know what to type. So I went through those text messages and I put in OH1, OH2, OH3, OH4. So if I typed in, pulled up a contact and I put in OH1, that text message that I just shared with you would automatically populate. I don't even have to type it.
Are you using the shortcuts in the Apple universe to do
Yep.
that, Mark? Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
So you literally just type HO1 space and it pulls up.
It pulls up and then I can go in and edit it as I need to, right? I can change it from hi name to change name to Mark and away we go. Or maybe I want to say I'll call you on Monday, right? Depends on the day, right? But I don't have to type 90% of it. Now, if you don't know the shortcuts, you could always put it in a notes and copy and paste it. It still saves your thumbs typing it every time, especially if you have a busy open house. Okay. You guys are getting more pro tips today. But go to those open houses. Do not ask someone, never at an open house, say, so John, do you have an agent? Because what do you think he's going to say?
Yep.
He's going to say, yes, he does, even though he has no idea what an agent even is. It's just like going to Nordstrom's. Can I help you find anything today? Nope. Just looking. So how do I ask? How do I talk to people to get information with them not knowing I'm getting the information? Hi, welcome to the open house. My name is Margaret. And then I put my hand out so that they shake my hand and they come back and they say, well, hi, my name's Deanna. And I'll say, Deanna, great to have you here. Thanks for stopping by. And then I'll look to him. I'll shake his hand and he'll say, hi, I'm Scott. And I'll say, Scott, thanks for coming in. So what brings you guys? So how did you find us today? That's one of my favorite ones, right? Just always like to know what pieces of my marketing is working. How did you find me today? If they say Zillow or Redfin, then I know that they're kind of actively digging around, right? If they say I saw the signs, then maybe they weren't necessarily actively looking for an open house. By the way, we sold a $1.4 million house who followed signs the other day. Can you believe that? They weren't even looking to buy a house and they followed some signs and bought a $1.4 million home. It happens, you guys, all the time. They live down the street. Okay, great. Glad to know that's working. Then if I use sign-in sheets, or then I keep my conversation going, right? So tell me, are you guys in the market to purchase a new home, or do you live here in the neighborhood? How they respond is going to tell me what I ask next. If they say we're considering purchasing a new home, then I'll go down this path. How long have you been looking? What do you think of the homes that you've been seeing? Right? Especially if they've been looking for a long time. What are your thoughts on the market? What do you think about the homes that you're seeing? Like, I want to know where their mindset is. Like, what is their perception of our market? If they say they're just getting started, I'll say, great. Are you planning? Is this the area, your primary area you're looking in? You notice I've never asked them the question yet, have I? If I find out they've been seeing some homes, right? Well, we've been looking for 6 months. Yeah, everything we see, we just couldn't compete, whatever. I'll say, great. How long, how are you gaining access to the homes you're seeing? That one is a key question. Burn that into your brains. How are you gaining access to the homes that you have been seeing? They're going to answer one of two ways. Our agent's been sending us, we've been going with our agent. Well, what did you just find out? They have an agent and I don't need to ask that question. If that's the answer, then I go into telling them about the house and send them on their merry way and get out of my face, right? I'll still be very nice and pleasant, but I'm not going to dedicate a whole lot of time who says, well, our agent Amir has been sending us properties, but he's up skiing this weekend, so we just thought we'd pop into this one. Okay, I don't need to work on them, right? I'll be nice to them, I'll answer the questions, but they're Amir's client. I don't care. But if they say things like, we've just been going to open houses, we've just been looking online, what did I just find out? They ain't got no agent. Okay. We just go to open houses. Okay. So then I'll just continue the conversation, but I don't continue it too long that it gets awkward, because at the end of the day, they want to see the house, right? Now, if I'm using a sign-in sheet, I might say, so Mark, if you don't mind, the sellers just asked everyone to sign in, if you could do that. That got really easy in COVID with all the contact tracing. Our team doesn't do that. Our team uses a feedback form. And what I'll say is, so Mark, so let me tell you a little bit about the house. Oh, sorry, Scott was the one that came to the open house. Scott, let me tell you a little bit about the house, and I'll go blah, 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 blah. Oh, and you need to make sure you check out. Or I'll say my favorite feature is, because I want them looking for something obscure in the house. Like the one I'm doing today has a hidden wall, has a hidden room. It looks like a bookcase, you pull it open and there's the storage room. But if you don't know it's there, you wouldn't find it. So I'm going to be talking about that a lot today. And then I'll say, so Scott, once you get done looking at the house, I'm wondering if you could do me a favor. And he'll say, sure. We've got a feedback form over on the kitchen counter. If you could stop and fill that out for the seller, we'd really appreciate it. You know, as agents, when we're out showing homes with our buyers, one of the things we do as a courtesy to the sellers and the listing agents is we send them feedback after the showing. However, here at an open house, the only way I have to capture that information is if you would provide it through your feedback form. Okay. Here's what I've learned in 9 years. When people walk in, the wall is high, right? They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to give you information. They want you to stay away. The same way we don't want the Nordstrom salesperson to help us and show us where the black pants are. I can find them myself, right? However, if I have given them what they want and I've asked them questions without being the pushy car salesman, and I've let them feel comfortable with me and I've learned some information and I've now let them go see the house, where is their guard? It is way down, right? They are more willing to give me their true name, address, phone number, and email on a feedback form than they ever will give me on a sign-in sheet, because that's where I get Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Daffy. Or dial a prayer, right? I get bad phone numbers, I get bad email addresses, I get bad stuff. Other people have great success with the sign-in sheets. You do you, right? There's a million ways to do that. I'm sharing you what I've learned in 9 years, okay? Have great conversations with people today and you will find clients. Have great conversations. Okay. The best thing you can do at an open house is don't sell you. I've had to work very hard with an agent and it was I. Well, Scott, John, Deanna, when you walked into my open house, did you care about me at all? Not one bit. You came to the house, you want to know about the house, you want to tell me about you. And if you like the neighborhood, and if I know something about the neighborhood, you might want me to tell you that. But you don't give a, you know what, about me. Right? So anyway, just some thoughts. All right. Questions? Anything? All right. Go kick butt at the open houses. John, so glad you took a day off of construction today. It gave you an extra day to get some stuff worked in. And it was a pleasure to be with you guys all. Next week, this time, Bob will be here with his Know Before You Go. If you have never attended one of those, it's only a 1 hour instead of 2, but Bob is the managing broker of the Keller Williams Avenues Market Center, Arvada. But he does a lot of things about, he's taught classes about soils. He's talked about things to look in the MLS. Like he's going to teach you some things that most agents don't think about. I know a month ago he was talking about ILCs and he went super deep. I jumped on and I learned some things. So I'm encouraging you to do that. Then in 2 weeks, this is a big one for you guys. I think it's next week. Let me double check. April 8th. Yes. You guys want to come to this one. And please try and stay the full 2 hours because we have that class is entitled, if you stay the whole time, to get you 2 continuing ed or CE credits. By the way, they're free. So free CE credits all day long, right? What we're going to do is Andrea from Land Title is coming and will be joining Jody, I think, or Bria. I can't remember. Anyway, we don't remember who the coach is. It doesn't matter. She is going to be teaching 2 different sessions that both are each 1 CE credit each. The first one is how to read a title commitment. Some of you may have never even seen a title commitment, let alone know how to read it, how to understand it so you can help guide your clients. The second piece she's going to teach you is how to do a net sheet. A net sheet is super important when you're working with a prospective seller and helping them identify what list price they want to go to. It's part of the listing strategy. Because at the end of the day, does the seller care about the purchase price or how much money they're getting? How much money they're getting, right? And the other thing a net sheet does is it's a great way when you have those multiple offers and you've got funky things in there like this one. This one's for this purchase price, but they want this much in concessions, where this one's a lower price, but no concessions. Sometimes the net sheet with the lower purchase price and no concessions nets them more money than the other one, right? And so being able to do that to help your sellers in a multiple offer situation, really compare them down to how much money they're going to walk away with. Even a difference in 2 weeks and closing dates can change your net. So we got a great lineup for the next 2 Saturdays. And here's what I'm gonna tell you guys, like, we are working really hard to bring you more content and more training on Saturdays than we've ever done before. And so if there's things that you want to hear from us that you go, I wish someone would teach us, bleh, talk to your coach in your market center and we will get it on the calendar. Is that fair?
Cool.
All right, with that, I'm gonna give you guys all 14 minutes back in your day. And it's been fun being with you guys. I'm gonna take a quick screenshot so I get all of those emails, and have a fabulous weekend.
Thank you.
All right, guys, bye.
Thanks, bye.